Hey, hey, stop scrolling that goddamn screen. Look at me. What the hell are you doing again? Is this seriously what your entire life has come down to? Sitting in the dark, that pathetic blue light smacking you in the face at 2 in the morning while the real world out there swallows you alive?
You think liking one more hustle harder video is going to change the fact that you're the welcome mat at your own office? Your wife's backup plan? The extra in your own movie? Pay attention to me. I'm the voice you try to drown out by cranking Spotify to max volume the second you get in the car. I'm that knot in your stomach when you walk out of a meeting where everyone in that room knows, including you, that you just got played. Again. I'm your survival instinct. I'm the part of your brain that read Machiavelli, read the 48 Laws of Power, and then you locked me in the basement of your mind because society and TED Talk hustlers convinced you that being the nice, harmless guy was the roadmap to success. They lied to you, and you, in your exhaustion and cowardice, swallowed it whole. You looked at the predators out there, on Wall Street, in the boardroom, at your own kitchen table, and you thought, if I don't show my teeth, they won't bite me. If I keep my head down, swallow my ego, hand over my blood and my time with a smile, they're going to love me. They're going to promote me. They're going to respect me. I was there when you signed that invisible contract. I screamed from inside your chest, but you ignored me. And today, the life you're living right now, with that suffocating feeling of emptiness, being tolerated instead of desired, getting talked over when you speak. That's not bad luck, brother. That's the receipt. That's compound interest on a debt you've been running since you decided that being harmless was the same thing as being safe. And that decision, that's the fatal flaw destroying your foundation. There's a conversation that happens between men who finally crack the code, not under the stage lights of some $5,000 mastermind full of recycled Tony Robbins material. It happens in the quiet, unguarded places, empty parking garages, kitchen tables at 3 a.m. after everybody's gone to bed. It sounds exactly like this. I don't get it, man. I do everything right. I show up. I outwork everyone in that building. I'm reasonable. I compromise. I never make it about me. And somehow, I'm the guy nobody takes seriously. I'm the guy who's going to turn 50, staring at some expensive watch on his wrist, wondering where the decades went. I'm not going to pat you on the back. Motivation is the fast food of the mind. It makes you fat, stupid, and weak. What I'm giving you right now is surgery without anesthesia. It's a clinical diagnosis, because diagnoses change the structure of your reality. They name the infection eating your spine. Robert Greene already warned us. You cannot destroy an enemy you haven't named yet. I'm about to inject into your bloodstream the 7 dark codes, the 7 pattern breaks that form the actual philosophy of Niccolo Machiavelli. Most of the sheep scrolling right now will close this video and go back to TikTok because the truth burns their eyes. But we're not them. If you can stay with me through the 7th code, the way you walk, breathe, and negotiate your own space in this world will shift before the sun comes up. Pattern break 1. The door you kept opening. Balthazar Gracian, a ruthless strategist from 1647, wrote something they quietly cut from the modern self-help playbook because it hit too hard. He said, "Never open the door to a small evil, for it will always bring a much greater one behind it." When you heard that in the past, you thought he was talking about con artists and criminals. He wasn't. He was talking about you. He was talking about the small evil of your own spineless tolerance. Think about every time you gave that weak, forced little chuckle at your boss's passive-aggressive comment that wasn't funny to anyone in the room. Every time you said, "No worries, I got it," while your ulcer was bleeding out from stress. Every time you absorbed quiet disrespect from a woman, folded that humiliation up neatly, stuffed it in your pocket, and called it being the bigger man. Every single time you did that, you opened a door. And what walked through wasn't their gratitude. What walked through was contempt. Smiling contempt, wearing borrowed clothes, calling itself friendship. Then you look at me terrified and ask, "So what do I do? Become the Joker? Pop the red pill and start being toxic to everyone?" Don't be basic. Don't be reactive. Here's where the key turns in the rusted lock of your frontal lobe. You don't stop being kind. You stop being cheap with your kindness. There's a Grand Canyon of difference between those two things that separates kings from cubicle workers. Think about an elite neurosurgeon. That man doesn't walk outside and start handing out scalpels and morphine to anyone who puts their hand out on the sidewalk. He delivers his medicine only to who deserves it, at the exact dosage, at the surgical moment. Hand out the morphine indiscriminately, and it stops being medicine. It becomes the drug that rots the patient's organs and trains them to be an addict hooked on your validation. This is our first pattern break. The brutal realization that your bottomless generosity didn't build loyalty. It trained the ecosystem around you to understand that you are infinitely available. And by basic economic law, the same law that starts wars, what is infinitely available has a market value of 0. It's a cheap commodity. The water flowing from your kitchen tap all day long isn't precious. You waste gallons of it brushing your teeth. But that exact same water, offered to a man crawling through Death Valley, is the physical manifestation of God. It costs him his soul. We've been the tap, running, open 24 hours. When people get thirsty for our attention, our sweat, our money, they come to us. They drink until they're satisfied, wipe their mouth, and leave without looking back. When they're not thirsty, they walk right past us. And you cry about it. You think they're monsters? They're not monsters. They're humans optimizing their energy. They do it because we wrote the playbook. We trained them. Stop what you're doing right now. Don't you dare keep moving forward in your head. Think back to the last time you actually tasted what real respect feels like in your mouth. Not getting liked, screw being liked, stray dogs get liked. I'm talking about respect that freezes your spine. When was it? Was it when you kept your head down and finished the TPS report that wasn't yours? Or was it that one rare, terrifying, unfamiliar moment when you locked eyes with someone who was testing you and you said the word no? A no with no reason attached, no apology, no alternative suggestion. A clean, dense architectural no. Go to the comments right now. Type just these 2 words, I remember. If you don't materialize that memory in the physical world, you lose it again. The energy that's about to ignite in that comment section will tell you more about the human condition than anything they teach in business school. Type it and come back. Pattern break 2. The mask that melts in the mirror. You remember that guy we knew at our company? Genuinely good in the most harmless sense of the word. Worked 14-hour days, never stole credit in the boardroom, never fudged the numbers. And guess what? Not one single person in any conference room ever chose their words carefully around him. He'd walk in carrying coffee and the side conversations kept going. The gravity in the room didn't shift a millimeter. He'd leave and it was like a ghost had passed through. Not because he was dumb, but because something invisible in his bone structure communicated a frequency that everyone's reptilian brain clocked instantly. The frequency of, I need the room to approve of me before I feel like I have the right to exist. The desperation for validation, the pathological need for the surface of the sea to stay flat. And in the concrete jungle, predators smell blood in the water. They smelled that desperation in him and used it. Pure predatory efficiency. He made it so stupidly easy for people to take chunks of his time that they did it on autopilot. No malice required. Sigmund Freud dissected this and called it reaction formation. The brutal mechanism where a man takes his deepest, most unacceptable fear and covers it with the fantasy of its opposite. The guy terrified of rejection becomes the most agreeable person in every office on the floor. The man who panics at confrontation becomes the eternal peacemaker. The dude with 0 internal structure performs an alpha archetype so loud, so packed with Instagram caption philosophy, that the smell of fraud fills the elevator. That's the mimic. And I hate when we become him. The mimic memorized the vocabulary of power without ever pouring the concrete for the foundation. We beat our chest in the group chat and say, we don't accept anything less than excellence. And then that same Tuesday we fold because someone shot us a 3-word text. We say we're detached from outcomes, and then we spend the next 4 hours staring at a black phone screen with the heart rate of a bomb disposal tech, praying for a response. That mask holds up in a 30-second elevator ride. It turns to ash when someone's around you for more than 3 weeks. You know why your relationships corrode out of nowhere? Why real leaders get a sour taste in their mouth even when you deliver perfect results? Why your confidence resets to zero the moment someone applies real pressure. Because you've spent the last decade trying to install respect from the outside in. Like a pirated USB drive. But the physics of respect don't run that direction. Respect isn't a tailored suit from Xenia that you put on in the morning. Respect is an internal temperature. Either the furnace of your body runs hot and heavy, or it doesn't. And no amount of fake it till you make it shifts the thermostat of your soul. You cannot fake gravity. Either you pull planets into orbit, or you float through the void like space debris. I want to see if you've got the guts to admit this out loud. Go to the comments right now. I'm not asking. Type mask or foundation. Type mask. If you know you've been running a theatrical performance of who you think the market wants you to be. Type foundation. If you've already dynamited the ground and built something that doesn't move when the wind howls. Lying to me is lying to the only thing that's going to be in your corner at the end. Choose your side and come back. Pattern break 3, the calculator's glass prison. We need to talk about our darkest phase now. You know that guy who reads the 48 laws of power and gets the whole thing completely backwards? He looks at that book and sees a video game cheat code. He thinks he became a strategist. What he actually became was a chess engine, exhausting, paranoid, and producing in everyone around him the specific sensation of being managed like livestock. We tried to be that guy. It was a disaster. The calculator understands push-pull, love bombing, strategic silence with the cold precision of a cynical watchmaker. He knows the exact millisecond to read a message without responding, manufacturing leverage. Every hug is a transaction on an invisible ledger. Short term, it operates like black magic. People become obsessed. Deals close. But then the whole house of cards catches fire. Because the human brain is the most lethal pattern recognition machine in the known universe. People can't describe the gears of your manipulation in clinical terms, but they feel the vibration of the machinery underneath. They feel the warmth that runs on a programmed schedule. They notice the vulnerability you only deploy right before you need something signed. That creates a specific bone-deep exhaustion. The exhaustion of being around something that looks alive but isn't. Emil Cioran, the Romanian philosopher who stared into the bottom of the human soul, said the obsession with self-destruction is the signature of the man who can neither live nor die. That's our reflection when we operate this way, suspended in the gap between authentic and robotic, too calculated for anyone to trust us with their real life. Too human to operate with the cold precision of a military drone. We don't belong anywhere. Our third epiphany is swallowing this blade whole. Social strategy without real emotional investment is just chronic exhaustion wearing an expensive suit. The kings Machiavelli actually admired weren't playing ego games all day. The pinnacle of power is building an architecture of environment where maneuvering becomes statistically pointless. Where your reputation walks into the room 30 seconds before your body does and cuts the throats of problems before you have to open your mouth. Stop trying to be a teenager rolling dice. Build the board. Pattern break 4. When the temperature in the room changes. Let me bring up that gray-haired mentor who crossed our path at some point. The fourth pattern break. How did he operate? He never raised his voice. Never performed the chest-puffing alpha male thing in meetings. That's insecure primate theater. When he disagreed with a majority partner, he didn't argue. He'd look you dead in the eyes and listen, nod slowly, and then ask one single question. And that question was a tactical nuclear device placed directly under your chair. Why did it hit so hard? Because it found, with surgical precision, the exact crack in your argument that you were bleeding internally to hide. He didn't attack the walls of your defense. He walked through them like a ghost, straight to the foundation, and shone a quiet flashlight on the rotting support beam. And you'd realize in one gut punch moment that he'd been 3 miles ahead of the conversation since the opening handshake. That's mastery. That's being immovable. He didn't react to other people's theater. He responded. And between reaction and response, there's a gap. A white space where emperors live and where slaves die. This is Green's 15th law running at full voltage. Crush your enemy totally, not with violence, with completion. Half measures, half forgiveness, leaving that one back channel open with the toxic person, just in case. That's the farm where you cultivate tomorrow's problems. The man at this level doesn't leave loose ends. His decision solidifies like poured concrete. The page doesn't get turned, it gets incinerated. Our boundaries can't keep being the opening bid in a negotiation where we cave to 50% by Tuesday. The surgeon's scalpel is cold in his hand. That coldness isn't the absence of humanity, it's absolute control. Emotion that has learned the discipline of waiting. Steel under the forge. The iceberg is cold and it sinks Titanics without making a sound. Pattern Break 5. The lethal language of silence. In classical martial arts, the most dangerous man in a 100-yard radius is the one who hasn't made a single movement yet. Not because he's frozen, because he made a conscious, fully informed choice to be still, knowing exactly what the alternative would cost everyone in that room. Coiled spring, loaded chamber, gravitational mass that hasn't moved yet. I've crossed paths with one person in my life who had this. One. And the disorienting thing about him was that people apologized to him before he'd said anything. People corrected themselves mid-sentence in his presence. His biological existence filled the room with a gravitational field that communicated without a syllable. Don't waste my time, or I'll erase you from my reality permanently. We want that, but this pattern break terrifies us. Because the toll to cross this bridge requires throwing one specific thing into the fire. The thing most men will protect until their last breath. The pathological need to be understood. I am done with this in you. Done watching you write a 3-paragraph text, delete everything, rewrite it, obsess over word choice, and sit there bug-eyed waiting for that read receipt to turn blue. Done watching you send a 4-minute voice memo justifying a decision you had every right to make without a single word of explanation. We use communication not to exchange information, but to run PR campaigns for our insecurities, to reassure our ego that we don't look bad in their eyes. The invisible gap between who we know we are and what people think we are gives you vertigo. Cut the cable. Let the gap exist. The sovereign man has made peace with the darkness of the unsaid. He's surgically removed the need for the office jury or his partner to rubber stamp his decisions. Never compete with someone who has nothing to lose. The man who has internalized the foundation of his own worth makes external opinions lose their physical density. They can't penetrate his skin anymore. Not performing indifference, an actual biochemical alienation from mediocre expectations. Tell me now, who in your life had that gravitational field? That presence heavier than a black hole without opening their mouth? Go to the comments. Type yes or no. One sentence describing what you felt. Find each other in those comments. The mirror is there. Pattern break 6. Stop threatening. Start architecting. You remember that leader who ran a 1,000-person organization and fired exactly one person in 15 years? He didn't do it in a rage. Rage is weakness with the door open. He did it so clinically, so non-negotiably, so cleanly, that the shockwave ran down the spine of the entire company over a single weekend. It didn't become water cooler gossip. It became genetic information embedded in the culture. It became the organizational DNA of what happens when you cross the line. After that day, he never had to raise his voice again. The culture itself became the guillotine. He became the invisible architect of the wind. A king who has to announce that he's the king doesn't have real power. He's a zookeeper trying to tame hyenas with stern looks. True, absolute power makes itself invisible by fusing with the structure. It becomes the walls, the floor, the air pressure. We need to stop issuing empty ultimatums. That's a loser's bluff. We need to build an ecosystem so viscerally defined by the weight of our moral code that the atmosphere itself expels mediocrity. Invisible influence, operating the strings of reality while we sleep. Pattern break 7. The death of the man you built. And now we arrive at the reactor core. The 7th pattern break, the secret that demands the death of the one thing we've spent decades defending with bleeding fingernails. Our identity, our crystallized ego. I'm not talking about abandoning weaknesses. I'm talking about assassinating our achievements, the status, the money, the reputation as the unbreakable man, the empire we sold our souls to construct. There was a millisecond, in some high-rise office, or some moment of brutal clarity, when we looked down at everything we'd built and the realization dropped through us like ice water. We could leave the keys on the desk, walk to the elevator, step out the front door, and leave every cent and every contact behind. Not look back. Not because we became Buddhist monks, but because we understood that we, the source, the dark material that generated all of it, weren't in the spreadsheets. We were in the marrow of our bones. Joran nailed it. The fact that life has no inherent meaning is the only plausible reason to keep living. The pen is in our hands. The man who has the brutal self-awareness that he built the walls can never be held hostage inside his own castle. That's what it means to be complete and sovereign. To fuse the shadow side with the light side so hermetically that you feel zero impulse to prove anything on social media. To think in 30-year cycles. To plant forests whose shade you'll never sit beneath. The absolute pinnacle of Machiavellian power is the capacity to stand up and walk away. Walk away from the $10 million deal, from the stunning woman trying to colonize your mind, from the partnership that feeds your ego but poisons your mission, from the mediocre version of yourself the mirror still sometimes shows you. When we reach that altitude, when we no longer need a single person in the room to applaud, the cosmic irony activates. People will tear their own tendons trying to orbit us. The 30-day Blood Pact. The dopamine hit from everything I've told you tonight will evaporate in 72 hours. You'll feel the pull to go back to being the trained dog answering emails, because consuming this cognitively is just elegant mental masturbation. Real transformation demands violence against your own identity. It happens when you look in the mirror and say, "It's done. I'd rather burn than go back." This is our Blood Pact. 30 days. One non-negotiable violent action. Stop. Completely. Absolutely. Unconditionally. Explaining yourself. Don't justify your schedule, your silence, your absence. When they come to test your boundary, and they will come like starving dogs demanding explanations, your old programming will panic. Lock your jaw, breathe through their silence, and keep walking without looking back. Day 1 will make you feel like a bastard. Guilt will strangle your throat. Day 7 will be nuclear winter, the coldest place your ego has ever lived. Day 15, black magic happens. The tectonic plate shifts. People will recalibrate violently around your new gravity, with respect and tactical awareness, not pity. By day 30, we'll be operating on an existential frequency that 99% of the world will never access. Will people who mattered leave? Yes. Let the earth swallow their footsteps. Their retreat is the audit trail proving they never loved you. They loved the butler, the golden retriever who stood in the rain for them without a word of complaint. By forcing the rupture, we recover our skeleton from the organic wreckage. My hands are shaking at the edge of this sink. What we drilled through tonight was heavy. Pattern break 2, ripping off the reaction formation mask, is the most terrifying. Because it's where we admit that underneath the scales, we were frightened boys. Can't blame the toxic boss. Can't blame the bad luck. It's 100% ours. And pattern break 7 is unreachable until the morning when the sick attachment falls away like a cicada shell and the loss tastes like purifying final liberation. The sun is coming up soon. This conversation is over. But before we leave this crossroads, you need to seal the pact in the physical world. The comment section below is the Black Book, the entry registry for the wolves who are exhausted from grazing. A commitment made in front of an audience creates a structural alteration in your neural architecture. It creates the pressure effect. Which of these 7 pattern breaks fired the bullet that punched through your chest tonight? Go to the comments. Type only the number of your executioner, the raw digit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. And if your demons need more space, let your shadow write the full confession. The bridge to reclaiming your kingdom is pointing your finger at the blood-stained map and saying, "This is where I fell, and this is where I kill everything that came before." You know where we stand tonight. I'll see you in the comments, where the darkness takes shape, where the liars run, and where kings find their own reflection.